afternoon, Camp Davy Crockett, and welcome to the Camp Davy Chronicles. And now I'm going to introduce our special guest host, Mr. J.D. Lawson.
How's it going, everybody? Yeah, I'm sitting in for our good buddy Zeph today. He had some scheduling conflicts and all that good stuff, so I'm sitting in here with Hayden in Zeph's chair today. And joining us, we have also a very special guest to be interviewed, and that would be the one and only, the most iconic camp staff member ever, Michael Wolfe.
Oh man, I wish we could do like the clapping sound effect. Just assume.
Absolutely.
But so like JD said, we had a couple scheduling conflicts with Zeph, and so we weren't able to get him in today. And so Zeph wanted to interview Steven, and so we are putting that off till next week, where we'll do a weekly episode, and we will have him back to actually interview. So this week we decided we would sit down with JD as a guest, since he had already been one of our guests, so he's a guest host this time, and then Mike Wolfe.
It feels different to be sitting in the host chair than in the interviewee chair.
That is true.
You don't have that bright light shining in your face.
That's true.
Yeah, that is true. A different fact, though, you were both sitting in the same chairs.
Correct.
So is it really that different?
It is.
It is different from when we recorded it in the Med Lodge, and they were hard plastic chairs.
That's true. We are now in the official Camp Davy Chronicles studio at camp, so that's exciting.
I am very excited for this. So, well, I guess we'll go ahead and jump in. We're going to go ahead and run through all the questions just like we would do interview for anybody else.
Okay. So we did not plan who was asking these questions ahead of time. So I'm just going to jump in and ask the first one, and then we'll just sort of move through it from there.
Sounds like a plan.
So on our first one, Mr. Wolfe, what is your current position, and how many years have you been on camp staff? And if you would like to run through a list of those positions you've held in the past, let's try that.
Now, we do have a limited amount of time, so you can't, maybe not list all of them.
We better stop now then. No, I guess my current position officially is camp registrar. Not really for sure exactly what that is at this point. It's camp, so it just sort of changes minutely, but probably looking at 30 plus years. Can't remember exactly. There was a couple of years in there in which I did not attend camp on staff, so I can't remember exactly. I'm getting old, and it's a lot harder to keep up with numbers once I go past my hands and feet.
That's true. You're pushing 70 now, right?
Absolutely. 70, 51, somewhere there close.
Close enough.
Yeah. Some of the positions I've had, of course, sort of going backwards, maybe. I've been shooting sports director. I've been business manager, trading post manager, dining hall director, merit badge instructor, ecology director.
Wow. I guess it'd have been easier to ask you what you hadn't done.
What I haven't done,
yeah.
Yes. I even helped lifeguard a year or two, off and on weekend type things, not full time. Like during the week, I was teaching other stuff. But
okay, so I know because I know it's difficult for you to remember that far back. But what was your first year on camp staff? Do you know?
I was like 14, so that would have been like 84-ish.
1932.
It was, 1901. No, I'm just kidding.
No camp.
Yeah, so it'd have been 84 around there somewhere.
Oh,
there close.
Cool. So yeah, it's been a little while. So
labor laws have definitely changed since then. We can't hire 14-year-olds.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But that's still it's interesting to get to talk to you that you've been here so long and seen all the changes and stuff. What was I'm still asking hard questions. Remember in your first year what the most memorable experience was? You're giving me blank stares.
Things were probably, obviously different than they are now. The staff was not like stationed in one campsite together like they are now. You stayed spread out all throughout camp. So each program area had a different area in camp in which they stayed. And my first year on staff, we stayed sort of in the woods across from the pioneering shelter between what was then the commissioner's area. And so there was like 4 of us that stayed over there, and it was just sort of a different time and different.
Right.
Probably the biggest difference in being new. And
so camp would have been roughly probably 10, 12 years old at that point, right? We opened in 72,
right.
So 10, 12 years somewhere in there.
Right.
It's weird to think about it now, but I know in the past I've heard you talk about being involved in building the archery range. And looking back on it, that first year that you were here, how many buildings were on camp? Because I know obviously it has grown greatly since that first summer,
right?
In the 10 years in between, but how, we got buildings all over the place now.
Yeah, that's true.
I guess main buildings that we think of that's still here today, you had the cook's cabin and the dining hall, and
which is now the STEM Center.
The STEM Center, and then the headquarters building, the rifle range, and I'm thinking we had a little. No, we didn't.
Was Cope there?
Cope was there, but there was only the tower. That was the only structure. There wasn't a building there. So yeah, it was a little different than it is now. It's sort of grown, and things have went and shifted.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because I know today we were in the office talking about buildings that had just been recently built. And what I found interesting, because all the buildings that were here when I got here, I just kind of assumed they'd been here for hundreds of years, whatever. But the shotgun range you guys were saying had been built early 2000s, late 90s, around there sometime?
Not the building itself. The program was added then.
Right. Oh, okay.
The building itself, I remember it being built. It was built at the same time as the handicraft shelter.
Oh, right. Interesting. So when would that have been?
It would have been 08, 09, somewhere in that range.
See, because I can't imagine. Yeah. I just imagine that they had always been there. They just kind of popped up.
And those 2 buildings, as best I remember, were built, both of them completely from scratch the same weekend. There's I want to say it was an ordeal, maybe.
Yeah, it was a work weekend of some type of.
Yeah, that's cool. Now we have the Wednesday crew that's just building all kinds of buildings around camp.
We had it was definitely an OA weekend. And we had a leader from Bristol that was a contractor or a construction person of some variety. And he offered his services. And in one weekend, we built 2 brand new shelters, basically.
Yeah, that would definitely be something cool to be involved with.
Yeah, because when shotgun first started, and the same with archery, basically shotgun was just a canvas tarp sitting out in the middle of the field with a folding chair that they took out there each afternoon to shoot, and it was hotter than Hades. I mean, it's hot over there now, but man, it was really hot then.
And as best I remember, the handicraft classes were taught at the trading post shelter before that, were they not?
Correct. Yep. And then, archery, the archery building was built in probably 98, 99 range.
Okay.
I came in, I was at least 18, probably 19 at the time. And I came in a couple of weeks early for camp, and we built it, just the ranger and some of his buddies around the neighborhood here, and me and a couple other people. It was just, we put it together.
Yeah. That's pretty cool. So did you ever teach archery?
Well, only in ROTC, but it was...
Because I was curious. I was like, man, this means everybody's taught archery.
Which, just maybe you want to distract a minute while we mentioned ROTC, talk about ROTC week.
Oh, yeah, that's true. We did just have ROTC week. So we got our first week of program here at camp done. ROTC week. It was interesting. We were recording this on Friday, which I keep thinking it's Saturday. Everybody here keeps thinking it's Saturday because normally they roll out on Saturday. And I am tired. I'm sure everyone else is too. But it was a long week. I had fun though. I always do. I always look back at the end of the week and think, man, why can't we have another one? Well, guess what?
Yeah, guess what? We do have another one this time. So normally we run 1 week of the ROTC program. This year we're running 2. First week was a good week, like Hayden said. A lot of good stuff happened. A lot of lessons were learned, and most of them not the hard way, which makes them a really good lesson. But this was purposely scheduled first, like it was. We have most of the units that were here represented this week are returning units, so they sort of knew what to expect. This coming week's going to be really fun because we get mostly new units who don't know what to expect, and we don't know what to expect from them.
Yeah, that's true. And all of staff rolls in.
All of staff rolls in Sunday, so the ones not training the ROTC are being trained. Yeah. So going to be a fun week coming up.
So while we're talking about this, I just wanted to mention this. So I think my best part of ROTC week is getting to see the kids walk around and sing cadences.
Correct.
Because it's interesting to see what they do and how they do it. So what do you think is your favorite part of ROTC week?
My favorite part of ROTC week originally was definitely the cadences, but being around these schools for so long and their cadre, their commanders don't change very often. Having inside jokes with those guys, and unlike most of the scouts that we see year round through different programs, I'm sure Mike can attest to this. ROTC week getting to be around those folks, they're really cool. Yeah. So getting to see those guys again is a lot of fun.
That is true. I'm starting to get to the point where they're seeing, like, I get to talk to them and stuff. Because, the first year you work with them, it's kind of scary and you're, like, terrified. But now I'm getting to the point.
They're just scary old men, that's for sure.
That is true. We did have a chance to play tug of war against them. We didn't fare too well.
No, they drug us through the mud.
But there was a time where I thought, because at first I was like, we'll see what happens. I was expecting to lose. But then I felt that we were kind of moving back, and I was like, oh, man. And then we lost. And
what's really happening here, some of the listeners may not realize, is Mike's sort of really hoping none of those guys are listening, because if some of them hear him call them old on the air, they might have some words for it.
That is true.
I said old and scary, and they are scary, that's for sure.
I don't want to mess with
even
them.
These days, I'm glad that I'm on the good side of them and not the bad side.
I can attest to that. But, okay, let's try to get back on track a little bit here. So I'll ask the next question.
Okay, go for it.
That one. And this one might be a little harder than your positions as staff. So you've been in a couple of troops throughout the years, right?
3, basically.
Okay. So do you know your troop / scouting history and how many years you've been in scouts in total?
Well, let's see. I started scouts when I was 12, so that would have been in 82.
So what's that, 40?
And so 82 to 2022, come on, teacher over here.
40.
Yeah, so 40.
Yeah.
It's 10 less than the 72 that camp started,
That's
so
true.
if this is 50 for us, it's 40 for you.
So yeah, it's been 40 years. So
Wow. Yeah.
been in 4 different troops. Some of those were simultaneously.
Right. Do you know the numbers?
Sure, I was Eagle Scout in Troop 7. Was
Ooh.
Bob McCroskey as my Scoutmaster.
What year?
Who is another camp staff legend.
Yeah. Do you know what year? I know J.D. doesn't know what year he got the Eagle Scout.
Oh, yeah, I got Eagle Scout 1988 because I got it the night before my 18th birthday.
Oh. Okay.
I finished my board of review. And then I was also with Troop 7, which was, my mind just went blank. Pat Jenkins was the Scoutmaster. Okay. Trudy Jenkins' husband.
So 2 different Troop 7s?
I'm sorry, Troop 10. Did I say Troop 7? All right, Troop 10. So I helped them out, and then at one point I sort of became Scoutmaster for a while, Troop 10. Right. And then we moved to Kingsport, and I got involved with Troop 48, and then also a little later on, after many years of working in the office and around things, I ended up looking for a troop and ended up helping out 604 there in Big Stone Gap. Was registered with J.D.'s troop there for a year, maybe two. I can't remember. But they needed some help with leadership, so that's pretty much I was a Weeblows Den leader for 1 month, and I don't even remember what the path was.
Interesting. So I just want to say something while I'm thinking about it. Last time we had the interview with you, Zeph had pointed out that I say interesting a lot. And so I have tried to catch myself each time I say it this time. And so I've noticed twice so far that I've said it to one of you. And so, well, now everybody's going to notice it. But I'm just trying to catch myself. And I just said it. And it is interesting. So we can put the count up to 3 on that one. So I just, that's off topic, but I just wanted to point that out about catching myself. And so if you hear me start to say it and then quit, that's what's going on.
Okay.
So, all right, next question, I guess.
What is your favorite Marvel movie, Mike?
Oh, man.
I've been pondering this one. I don't know. I'm going to say probably Spider-Man. No Way Home thing. Yeah, I know what that one.
That's a good movie.
I mean, I like all of them. It's really hard to pick one, but I don't know. That one having the different Spider-Man from other shows coming back in, it made it more interesting, I think.
Yeah, it did make it interesting. So I just wanted to. Me and J.D. and Zeph had talked about that too. It was hard to narrow it down to just one good movie. And so I think all of staff will agree with that as we interview them, that it is hard to just say, this is my favorite movie.
On the note of Marvel movies, you did have some predictions about Doctor Strange that we could probably run through because that did not happen on the last episode. Or do you want to save that when Zeph
That
gets
is true.
back?
We actually did go through it on the last episode. And so... But yeah,
okay.
There were just 2. The Doctor Strange would be in the movie.
Right. I remember you talked about that one, but the other one, I don't remember you doing it because I thought you wanted to avoid spoilers.
Which one was that?
Zeph's where Loki was going to be in it.
Yeah, that's true. We could talk about that.
Yeah, has it been enough time? Do you think we're safe?
I think it's been enough time.
All right. Spoiler alert. Zeph was wrong.
Zeph was wrong, which is normally wrong. But, I just can't help it. So, I've done lost my train of thought. That was
Well, we talked about his Marvel movies, so we can probably move on to the next question.
I got too busy of making sure that Zeph was always wrong. So this one's going to take a little bit of explaining, I'm sure. And so, what is your favorite camp story?
My favorite camp story. Well, there's an ROTC one, but I better not go there with that one, so we'll keep it to scouting.
Yeah, keep it to scouting stories.
Scouting-wise, favorite camp story.
I know this one's hard. It's the same thing with the Marvel movie of trying to narrow down a favorite story. We discussed that as well.
There's a lot of them out there.
Yeah.
I mean, we talked about how he basically been on camp staff for 30-some years. So, I mean, that's a lot of stories.
That is true.
And the funny thing is, most of the really, really, really good stories that you can pick out aren't really public consumption stories.
I do think my favorite story with Mike that I have been involved with was the skit that Steven and them did at Weeblo's resident camp. So for those of you that don't know Mike or haven't seen Mike, he has a little slow when he moves around.
He does have some
physically
some
injuries that prevent quick movement.
Yes,
we'll say that.
And so he is prone to falling, especially when there's roots or water hoses.
Water hoses, especially.
And so there was a time at the cabin when he had walked out of the cabin and had a fresh cup of hot chocolate in his hand. And there was a tree root that was perfectly placed. And it just happened to catch his foot, and he fell.
I didn't just fall off face planted.
No attempt to catch himself at all.
It was like a tree falling when you scream timber. I thought about screaming timber as I turned around, but spilled the hot chocolate and everything. And so what created that was that Steven and them did a skit about it. And no one else laughed, but all of staff thought it was hilarious.
It was in our Try Not to Laugh section of Campfire last year.
And I do indeed. We were trying to make you laugh,
Correct.
JD. And I think we made you laugh.
You did.
Because it was pretty funny.
Absolutely. I still haven't got to see it. They told me all about it.
Yeah.
Let's see. I was in the hospital when that was going on.
Yeah, that's true.
And I was told that somebody recorded it. And nobody remembers who recorded it or will admit they recorded it.
Yeah.
I guess because maybe they think that I'm going to be mad at them. I just want to see it and laugh like everybody else because I'm really good at picking fun at myself. So.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. Like, we like to make fun of each other. I think that's what.
So that is Hayden's favorite Mike camp story.
Yeah, I was hoping.
What is Mike's favorite Mike camp story?
I was hoping that gave you enough time to think about it.
Well, no, because then I was thinking about what you were talking about. Distracted me from my favorite camp story.
I'm sorry.
Jeez.
It's a tough question.
I don't know, when we started getting some of the new stuff, because, you're around anywhere, doesn't matter what it is, whether it's scout camp or work or just in society in general, you talk about all these plans that you want to see done or what's going to happen. And, most of the time it's just talk and it never goes anywhere. And probably some of my favorite things is when you start seeing stuff that's been talked about for 20 years or 30 years start coming to fruition. And
yeah, that's true.
And those kind of things. And
I think one of my favorite things to go along with that, and you were involved in this, is when they laid out the ground for the new dining hall. The McLaughlin dining hall, and we drove past it, and it's out in the field, and there's this massive field, and what at the time was a tiny concrete area that was laid out, and we were looking at it and going, there is no way that is bigger than our old dining hall. And then they started putting the walls up while we weren't here, and we came back for a weekend activity, and Mike and I drove past, and we're like, well, we were wrong. That is much bigger than our old dining hall. That is impressively large.
It is a good opening statement as you drive into camp now.
Absolutely.
I love it.
I did think of an interesting story.
Okay.
Actually, two, they sort of tie together in one way. When I was probably second or third year on staff, we had a troop from Scotland that came to camp and visited camp for a week and had a lot of fun. Of course, camp policy is no soccer. At least at the time was. I don't know if Peter likes that or not. But they challenged the staff to a soccer game and absolutely slaughtered us. It was like 78-1, and we only got the one because they just wanted to laugh at us by letting us score the one goal. But that one was a lot of fun. And then on shooting sports, I won't go into a lot of detail because, but we did have a movie star come to camp as a scout. He was a scout out of Georgia, and their troop came to camp, and he was here all week. Nobody knew he was here because they kept it a secret, except for what program areas he was in. So they got to let us know, not to let anybody, so they didn't get annoyed the whole week he was here. Really cool kid, and had a lot of fun. Spent a lot of time at the rifle range shooting, and
to be fair, this person, if we told you their name, it probably wouldn't register that they were a movie star. But if we told you the role that they played,
or the movie they were in,
it would be like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
But
because I don't know that they've been in anything since then.
Yeah,
nothing as major as the first movie, at least.
Right, but it was a lot of fun.
So while we're in story time, I wanted to talk to you guys because I have made a really big realization this week. Other than the rifle range and the shotgun range and all that stuff being built, not being here just all the time, I realized, because JD and me were having a discussion, that there was a time before Mike and JD hung out and we're friends, if you want to call each other friends.
Well, part of that is, I'm twice his age. So, there was definitely a 20 or 30 year period in there which he didn't even exist. So.
I just kind of assumed that somehow you just guys became friends and you've been friends ever since. And so I want to discuss how that happened.
Well, first of all, to go back into the how long has Mike been on camp staff, I am the old man on camp, mostly. If you don't include Mike as camp staff because he is the registrar, which is not technically a camp staff position, I have the most years of anybody on staff.
Right.
Mike has worked on camp staff longer than I have been alive. And I'm the old guy on camp now.
That is crazy.
So that's probably weird for him and me both to think about.
Well,
But
now
yeah,
we're all thinking about it.
that's true. There absolutely was a time when Mike and I had no idea who each other were. And I distinctly remember the first time I met Mike.
Okay.
And we were, it was after I'd become a part of the OA, and I was the chapter chief for what was at the time the Wapalani chapter, which was the old Lonesome Pine district, which was sort of by default because there were only 3 members of it, and I was the oldest. So,
and Billy Hilton was one of those.
Billy Hilton was in there as well.
Cool.
Billy is not listening to this, but shout out to Billy anyway.
That's right.
But anyway, I was the chapter chief, so sort of started to get involved in some lodge functions. So they decided that they were going to send 2 youth and 2 adults to National Camp School, NLS, National Leadership Seminar in Chattanooga, Tennessee. And I was one of the youth, and the Wolfe was one of the adults.
Oh, interesting.
And that was the first time I ever remember being around Mike Wolfe.
So did you guys like hit it off right there?
No, Mike was sort of more of a mentor to the other youth that went that weekend, Cameron Mitchell, because they're both from Kingsport, so it made more sense then. But anyway, we that's where we met, and we worked together a little bit on work days here and there. I remember, I think you were involved in when I was here tearing down the old trailers that used to be
absolutely
behind what was then the girls' cabin.
As they drove my truck over one of the trailers and got it stuck.
I do remember that now.
Yeah.
Good old Snowball was your truck's name, but then working with him a couple of times early on in my camp staff career. You were in and out, but that was sort of in your time frame where you weren't on camp staff.
That was around one of my first 3 or 4 retirements from camp.
Yeah.
Now we're on what, like 15?
I don't know. I quit counting after a while.
But I still really didn't know Mike all that well. And I think the first time we ever really interacted much on a big scale was probably when you were the assistant shooting sports director and I was the archery instructor. That was probably the first time that we really sort of got to know each other. Yeah. And I think we're basically the same person, just 20 years apart. So
that's why
it worked really well.
Well, an interesting thing also, one of the fortunate things, and even Hayden can attest to this since he's there, because all 3 of us are shooting sports alumni / current status. So it's also a year-round position more than just at summer camp. So you end up being together, 8, 10, 12 hours a day all summer, and then weekends, and then you're down here working on the ranges when it's not, and it just becomes more family than
that's
some
what
of
I
the
was
other.
about to say.
And we have been accused of being the mob family.
You are sort of the godfather of camp.
Yeah, it is definitely more of a family than just a program.
And something we found out rather early on one of our weekend shooting sports, we didn't know this right from the beginning, but he and I are technically, we haven't worked it out yet, related to one another. Because we're both somehow related to June Carter, who is Johnny Cash's wife, if nobody's aware. But somewhere along the way, Mike and I both have that claim to fame. So we're technically related in there somewhere.
Cousins somewhere down the line.
So is this like friendship at first sight?
No, there was that first summer. There was a point in time where I don't remember this. I guess I was so mad or so tired or something that I apparently quit talking to Mike for like a weekend and drove off and spun my tires.
He did throw a little temper tantrum. Absolutely. Now, in his defense, it was at the end of camp, and we were just finished. It was hot as all get out, and we were doing the whole pack up everything. The rest of the staff was gone, and we just had a different opinion on what needed to be done somewhere. I don't even remember.
Yeah, neither one of it. Well, I don't remember the incident at all, so I definitely don't remember what I was mad about. And Mike doesn't remember, so whatever. But it was apparently bad, whatever it was.
Wow. So maybe friendship at like 30 sites.
Yeah, something like that. Well, I try not to look at him.
Yeah, that's true. I think that's why we wanted to pick the podcast format, so that way we didn't have to look at our interviewees. So, and they didn't have to look at us. So now we're about at the halfway point. So I think we, since JD has taken Zeph's spot for this week, he's going to do the word of the day. So we'll start with that.
Okay, so the word of the day is a good one, and it fits really well with our theme and sort of what time it is. So those of you who haven't been around ROTC week, we run our program during ROTC week 12 hours a day straight, basically.
Yeah.
And there's like a 15, 20-minute lunch break. And that's it. Other than that, we're going full tilt from 8 in the morning until 5:30 or 6 in the afternoon.
And your lunch break is they bring you your lunch and you eat wherever you're at. There's no going anywhere, no anything.
30-minute break.
30-minute this year. It's been 15 in the past, so I didn't know what it was this year officially.
They gave us 15 extra minutes.
All right. So your word of the day sort of fits that theme, and it is perfunctory. Perfunctory. And the definition of that is used to describe something that is done without energy, as a duty, or out of habit. And sort of by the end of ROTC week, everybody that's involved in that week is acting perfunctory because it's a habit. You're basically doing it out of survival instinct because you know what you're doing by that point after you've been there for 12 hours on the first day. By the fourth day, you're like, all right, I got this. I'm tired. I might be a third of the way asleep, but I know what I'm doing, and I'm doing it out of habit at this point. Right. So it is a perfunctory action.
Interesting. I like. There it is again all the time. Every time I say it, the word interesting. But yeah, no, I think that you mentioned that one before we got started, and I was like, oh, that is a perfect word. So now, because we have a perfect word of the day, that means I couldn't find a perfect joke of the day. I tried my hardest, but I had to go back to the Scout's Life magazine, and I'm going to read you two jokes.
You need to change your format there slightly because you're at camp now. You need to do your joke of the day from the milk cartons from the dining hall.
That is true. I might bring out a couple milk carton jokes, but I'm going to read you two jokes of the day because they're interesting. And so the first one is what Scout's Life says is the joke of the day.
Okay.
So, what do you call trash that a cat threw out of a car?
Littering?
That might be. Kitty litter.
Kitty litter. I was going with littering, like a litter of cats.
Right.
Okay.
And then my personal favorite, that seems a little bit more funny, but it's still kind of a goofy joke. How do you make an egg roll?
You push it across the ground?
You push it. Okay, so those are two jokes. So
we had you figured out on those.
Yeah, that is true. But you can't. Not all jokes are winners. So
that's true.
All right, so I think we go back to our questions. Do you want to ask the next one? You want me to ask it?
All right, if you had a reasonably large budget, not an unlimited budget, but a reasonably large budget to build one building on camp that is not currently in the plans, what would that building be?
Yeah, we sort of talked about this one, but it's got to be our Raymond P. Conley Shooting Sports Complex.
See, I didn't name it last time, so I'll let you throw the name in.
Because we name it after our good buddy, Mr. Colonel Ray Conley from our Shooting Sports Committee / staff, and he done a lot of work for the shooting sports program, but it's our mega structure that has all the shooting sports in one building type situation and a little better classroom situation, those kind of things. So,
right. And maybe even a bedroom in it.
Maybe even a bedroom or two for the staff. So, we could be antisocial and stay away from.
So an interesting factoid to throw in there, Raymond P. Conley was the man who taught my rifle merit badge class down here.
Really? I didn't know that.
That I earned my dime award in.
Cool. So I just realized something, that the $1 million question was from Zeph for you. And so now we've asked you as well. I didn't get asked it when I got interviewed, but I would probably say the same thing because we're all from shooting sports, and so that's what we want is the shooting sports complex. And JD kind of laid it out the last episode or whenever he was interviewed
two episodes ago.
That it would be cool.
So my backup, it's not necessarily a building, but the running joke for years that I started when I was the first year camper director.
The Batmobile?
The Batmobile.
Mm.
A Batmobile would be my next thing.
Right.
Or I would at least settle for water and electricity to the first year shelter, which was another running joke that I started.
Right. Which is pretty much there now, so.
Not
water, at least. Isn't water there?
No.
Oh,
neither one of them made it. Yeah.
You know, if on a serious note, if I had an unlimited budget and couldn't do the shooting sports complex, I've always wanted a OA lodge, like an actual lodge where it has bunk rooms and bathrooms and stuff like that. That would be really cool because I've been to other camps that have that and they seem to love it a lot. So that would be my other option if I was going to do it.
And just to throw something out on the Ray Conley Shooting Sports Complex, if any of you are coming this summer and will be taking rifle and air badge, you'll probably get a good chance to meet the man, the legend, Raymond P. Conley.
Yeah, that's true.
He will be on the rifle range every Wednesday helping out. He comes down and does that.
I think there's a more important thing that we need to say, though. If any of you are coming to camp this summer and have an unlimited budget, then we could build, talk to Ray. We'll get it taken care of.
Absolutely.
So we're always looking for good people to help us out.
Absolutely.
So, all right. So now we've got a few listener submitted questions from last time that we're going to continue on to ask you because I think they're pretty good questions.
They are very good questions.
And so, the first one is, what is your favorite campsite?
My favorite campsite?
Yeah.
I'm going to say Wolfe because I remember staying in Wolfe as a camper, which wasn't very much because I didn't spend many years as a camper.
Yeah.
And a funny side story on that, we'll come back to, but when I came down here my first year, I was pretty much homesick. I wanted to go home. I found out the staff, and back then we ran 7 weeks of summer camp. And it was like, I can't believe these guys stay down here for 8 weeks. I want to go home and it's day 3, and like the next year I signed up on staff and I've never quit. But I just remember staying in Wolfe and my tent was right there on the little cove part of Wolfe where the lake came in. And I literally could open the back flaps of my tent and be like 2 feet away from the lake and just sit there. And, we fished out of the back of the tent. And so it cool there. It was pretty, that was always my favorite.
So that means both of your troops have stayed in Wolfe.
Correct.
I figured it had something to do with your name.
No, absolutely, it didn't. And Moose would have been my second.
What's your connection with Moose?
It was just one of the other camps that we stayed at. It was a pretty good place up on the hills.
So, should we tease the small bit of Mike Wolfe homage on the 50th anniversary patch?
I think so.
So, if you check out our 50th anniversary patch, there is some hidden nods to, and some not so hidden.
Yeah, some Easter eggs. Some
Easter eggs, so to speak, of some of our former camp staff members. We've got the 2 obvious ones are our longest serving camp director and longest serving camp ranger, Fred Johnson and Frank Bowman, respectively, are honored pretty clear and obvious on there. But also there is a hidden Mike Wolfe reference as our longest running camp staffer. Yeah. If you check out the bottom, I believe it's bottom left corner, there is a signpost that points towards some campsites. And one of the campsites is Wolfe Campsite. Yeah. But it is not spelled like the animal. It is spelled like the wolf, as in Mike Wolfe, with an E on the end of it. Yeah. And there's one more on there, but we'll leave you all to figure that out.
Yeah, so if you can find a couple of them on that patch and bring it to me or Zeph, we'll hook you up with something. It's a special gift, but find it and we'll hook you up. So, but that's all I'm going to say. But it's really cool patch. Speaking of patch sets, we'll just throw another nod in there to those while we're talking about it. You can still order the patch set. You're just not guaranteed delivered before camp, seeing as in camp is in for Monday. What did we decide?
6 days.
6 days.
From the time this episode releases.
Yeah.
We are 6 days away from the first Scout BSA week of camp.
So that means 1 week. Basically. Yeah. So, but you can still order those and get them. You'll obviously get them after camp. But if you pre-ordered them, you should get them before camp. So that's cool. But just throw those out there. They're still the same price. And then you can still order the swag bag, I believe, as well. So.
If you can order the patches, I'm guessing you can order the swag bag.
Yeah. So the last listener submitted question, and I'm thinking this one's going to be pretty funny with you because this one could be difficult, is what is your favorite dining hall food?
For those of you who don't know, Mike has a hate-hate relationship with dining hall food.
That is true. Because, explain your background with food. Like, specifically.
He started eating it at a young age.
I'm fat, so I eat a lot of it.
But explain, like, why, like, you were a cook for a camp.
I did work at a church camp for one summer as a cook. I was also a chef at a dinner theater for a couple of years. So a lot of this food that they cook, you have also cooked, and it's dining hall food. I mean, come on, let's face it. Unless you're going to the Ritz camp in Beverly Hills or somewhere, camp food's going to be camp food. And yes, there are some that are better than others.
Right. But, Now, I do have to say, with the new dining hall, they've definitely stepped up their game with the food. It has been better the past 2 years.
Probably my favorite meal that I can remember had to be 2020, the year of COVID here at camp when we were running. They managed to get this we'd changed vendors for our food, I believe, and they got a new product. It was a pork.
Well, it was a replacement product.
They ordered it by accident, or not by accident, but they ordered one thing and it was replacement because they couldn't get that item.
Right.
And it was like, and you talk to any of the staff that was here that summer, and that was probably their favorite meal as well. And it's, if you look at it as a whole, it would get the votes from the most amount of people. But unfortunately, we can't get it anymore, and it lasted one summer and it's gone.
So what is it? You never said what it was.
It was a pork.
It was a patty, pork chop type deal, but it was really, really good. Mm. And before that, if we take that away, since it's not available, but probably hamburger or hot dog.
Yep.
Picnic day when they do that kind of thing. That's.
So I missed that. I was working on something else as we were discussing that because I thought you were just going to this big explanation and then never said what it was, and I was like, man. Okay. So
the next question should be, if I'm not mistaken, the question from the last guest.
Correct. Which was you.
Which was me. So this makes me kind of unique that I get to ask my question.
You get to ask your question.
So my question.
No comment. No.
My question is, was there a camp staff member that you remember from your time as a camper that influenced your decision to be on staff? Or somebody that you've been on staff with that has like kept you coming back? And you can't pick me or JD. We're not the ones that keep you coming back.
Well, you weren't around when I was a camper.
Well, but he said that you've been on staff with that have kept you coming back.
I don't know. There was a couple that come to mind. One was just here a couple of days ago, maybe yesterday.
2 days ago.
2 days ago was Gomer Williams. I remember Gomer, my first year here on staff. He was the lakefront director. We had an aquatics director named Andy Taylor. Those two were, I remember just looking up to them. They were, one because he was a crazy nut, and that was Gomer. He was a crazy kind of guy. And Andy was just he was a teacher also in the off season, and came here and did aquatics during the summer. And a little interesting side note is my first couple of years on staff, I worked with our now chaplain James Sauceman. He was here as a commissioner, I believe was his role at the time that I was.
I know he was program director somewhere along the way.
He was not program director, but I think he was commissioner.
Okay.
First year or two I was here on staff, and then we ended up, later on in our careers running into each other again. And James is, he's one of those kind of people that you look up to and is there for you.
So what do you think's been one leadership trait, to build on JD's question, that you've pulled away from one of these guys?
Absolute insanity.
Yeah. And I guess as serious as things can be, because, ironically, aquatics is probably in the same boat as shooting sports in a different perspective. They both are dealing with probably the most two dangerous areas next to cope in the camp program. And, even though you've got such a serious role, serious job is not to let it get to you, to have fun and those kind of things. And, anybody that's been around JD and I on the ranges know that, we take it serious, but we're going to have fun with you, and we're going to, because if you're not having fun, we're not having fun. If we're not having fun, we're not here. So
yeah, exactly.
But I think that's probably the trait that I,
cool. Yeah, just to have fun.
Have fun.
Not
take your job seriously, but, not to be an old poop in the process, I guess.
So, since we've asked that question, that means you get to ask our next guest, which will be Stephen. What question would you like to ask Stephen Kusick, shooting sports director?
Is there something else we can go to?
We can. If you'll think to yourself, I will go ahead.
And don't get me involved in the big conversation, so I can actually think about it.
All right. Well, me and JD will discuss this. We're going to do some social media plugs, which Zeph hates when you say it out loud. Just social media plugs. So we have officially got to a point on our Twitter where we have to use it now, because Zeph said that 5 followers, and that's where we get to. And so we've got to the 5, so he has started using that. We also have the Facebook page. And then the Instagram, which is what we're mostly active on. And so that's the push should be going out there. So if you haven't followed it, then you should go ahead and follow it. And then also something that is real big this summer is we're going to start doing some video interviews with just 1-2 minute clips with kids around camp and staff members around camp and just different things like that. And they're only going to be on the YouTube. And so it's important to kind of go to the YouTube and just check it out and make sure you know how to get there. And that you're subscribed, so that way you get the notifications. And, as any good YouTuber would say, like the video and turn on the bell notification.
So what can they find us on there, Hayden? What is their handle on YouTube?
Camp Davy Chronicles.
Okay.
And so something else, which is, I personally thought it was hard to spell Chronicles. And so you can type in Camp Davy and it'll pop up. So just life hacks for spelling. So
auto spell.
Yeah. As Mike always says, hooked on phonics doesn't work for everybody.
That is true.
So have you figured it out yet?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
What would be the one thing that you had to? I'm trying to think how to word it, but something that was way different once you become a staff member than you thought it was going to be as a camper looking the other way. So some big difference in good or bad.
Right.
It's
a good question. It's a good question. So with that, we've got 2 more things to do, and then we're almost done.
So can I answer that question real quick?
I guess.
Okay. So the one thing that I thought was going to be awesome part of being on staff was the air conditioning in the cabins. But I'm never in the cabin to enjoy that. So that's about the same.
There is something that has happened recently this weekend that no one else knows about, or at least shouldn't yet, is headquarters has officially got air conditioning and heating, and it is working well.
Okay.
It is.
So that happened. I actually left this morning, and it was not hooked up. And I'm back now. Almost 4 hours later, so it's hooked up and working now.
It is indeed
working. And they're in a process of negotiating the trading post, getting its little redone there, so it might be a little cooler.
Correct.
Cool.
But the trading post, or not trading post, the headquarters is feeling cool. So
feeling cool.
Feeling cool and looking cool. So that's what matters. So the last two things is remember the patch. When to get it, you have to see me and Zeph. You will get a little card from one of us. We will sign it. And you have to use a word of the day in a sentence for both of us. And so it can be the same word, but you need to see both of us. And then the other one that you see. So like if you come see me, I'll give you a card that has my initial. And then you take that to Zeph and he'll give you a patch or vice versa.
And if you listen to these, podcasts rather regularly, it should be a perfunctory action for you to pull out one of those words of the day.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting. So, and then the last thing is the thought of the day. So there are two thoughts again. So because I think both of them they're not big thoughts to think about.
Because you can't make big thoughts.
Right. Yeah. So the first one, which I don't think will have much discussion, but maybe we'll see. On a snake, you're familiar with snakes.
Not a big fan, but I'm familiar.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan either. Where does the snake stop? Like the snake body stop and the tail start? Because obviously snakes have tails, right?
Do they?
But, I don't know. That's what we need to find out. Where does the body of the snake stop and the tail start?
The tail is part of the body, is it not, Mr. Biology teacher? Would a
Can
tail
be
considered part of the body?
I would say that would be a whole lot more easy to answer if you were looking at a rattlesnake. Because the rattlesnake tail is the part that rattles.
Right.
And then if it doesn't rattle, it's the body.
So when I'm out, what happens if I'm not looking at a rattlesnake?
Then you get to make it up.
Oh, is that
I'm sure there is an answer to that, but I am not a herpetologist, so I cannot answer that.
Oh, interesting.
Well, maybe we could go find Matt and have Matt come up.
Maybe. Because he does know his snakes. Yeah. So I didn't think that would have much discussion, but I think it's something to think about. And then my last question, which I think will have a little bit more discussion. So a couple episodes ago, we had discussed, is there more doors or windows in the world? Or no, we discussed if there's more wheels or doors in the world.
Correct.
And so that got a lot of people thinking. And so then I was like, well, there's got to be other stuff that it kind of has the same thing. And so I was away talking with some other friends, and we came up with, are there more eyes or legs in the world? Because you think about it, spiders have 8 eyes or 8 legs, but they only have 2 eyes, right? Or something
Correct.
like that. But then, all the people, majority of them more have 2 legs and 2 eyes.
Correct.
But then there's like centipedes that have like a lot of legs.
Or flies that have a lot of eyes.
Exactly. So are there more eyes or legs in the world?
Legs.
You think legs? That is
because I don't know if this is where you're going. I hope I don't steal your thunder. But you have tables have legs, chairs have legs, needles have eyes, and potatoes have eyes, and that's about the only other thing.
Well, see, but I was thinking, like, I agree with your legs. I agree. I agree with the leg statement that there are more legs. But then I got to think about it, the counter arguments and stuff that they were talking about is like, do you count teddy bears and potatoes and different things like that also have eyes?
But they also have legs. Teddy
Well,
bears also have legs.
But
but potatoes do not.
That's true. That's also, unless you're talking about Mr. Potato Head or Mrs. Potato Head.
See, this also has the potential to be a changing answer question.
Right.
Because storms have eyes.
Mm. And they don't
so
have legs.
as the number of storms, maybe, I still think it's going to be legs no matter what. But
I think it is legs as well. But I don't know, something to think about and something to discuss with your friends as you discuss things.
I don't think that one is quite as much of a brain-teasing outcome as the doors or wheels.
That is still an interesting one, though. What are you guys? Team door or wheel?
I'm doors.
You're doors?
Doors.
See, I don't remember what I said last time. I still think I'm team wheels. Because there's too many things that have wheels.
Because you asked me that last time as well. I have not wavered at all.
It's a hard question.
Wheels, I think would be.
So we've got 2 wheels and 1 door.
I mean, there are a lot.
Now I'm not going to talk to Mike for the next 2 months.
It sounds
Well,
like
fine, be that.
you're going to spin your tires and roll up out of here.
Probably won't spin my tires. I don't want to hit the other cars out there.
Yeah, that is true. So, but I don't know, something to think about, and an interesting thought, I guess. So those are my thoughts of the day. And the last thing, of course, which I'm not going to do it as well as Zeph, and I would really tried to get JD to do it, and he just won't.
I'm on Team JD with this one.
Well, it's a great day to be a scout at Camp Davy Fun.
Crockett.
Camp Davy Chronicles. It's a podcast about Camp Davy. Crockett.